All right, here we are. Again, Simon, great to see you here.
Thanks, brother. Round two.
All
Fatherhood.
right, so this is Roman and Simon, and we're going to have a talk, second part of our talk about fatherhood today and all of the challenges and all the blessings that come along with that. So, Simon, you want to go ahead and introduce a little bit?
Yeah, man. Thanks again for making space for this. I know that you had a bit of a journey going home to Peru, and you still made space for this, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll give a little introduction about myself. I'm currently, we are currently almost 8 months pregnant. So we're coming down to a month before, or it could happen anytime now, before I'm really going to be a father. And I've been reaching out to mentors and other men that are in fatherhood and asking advice. And Roman, you came to mind right away. So I'm really trying to learn about how to show up. What can I expect? What will I never know? What will I, only know when it happens? And also like how I can support more men on this journey moving forward. And that's part of the organization that we've created called the Verity Foundation, which is an organization based on supporting and empowering men to step into their greater potential. And I'm seeing this huge void as I've gone through pregnancy and I'm becoming a father. I'm seeing this huge void in support and awareness around how to consciously step into fatherhood. So that's led me on this journey of reaching out and asking more questions because, yeah, I'm not surrounded with the support or the knowledge and I wasn't taught how to consciously lead as a man or as a father. And that's my journey right now.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have two kids right now. One is 3.5 and one is 4 months old. And I heard this joke a while ago when somebody's asking a 4-year-old child, how old is your father? And the child responds, he's 4. And they said, how can he be 4? Well, he said, he only became a father when I was born. So he's 4 years old right now. So I'm 3.5 years old right now. I'm a 3.5-year-old father. And that there's a lot to learn in that subject. And I agree with you. I also haven't seen a lot of conscious information out there in preparation for fathers. There's quite a bit information for mothers, and my wife did amazing with that. She prepared a lot, and she got a lot of empowerment and support. And I had to utilize a lot of the knowledge that I have from life experience and from the spiritual path, and then to integrate that into the journey of the fatherhood. And so then gradually, of course, nothing can really prepare for that. And at the same time, there have been a lot of different experiences in my life that have helped me create points of reference. And to see, okay, well, this is where I get overwhelmed. And this is where I feel like I don't know what to do in this situation. Or in this situation, I feel like I'm really frustrated and I don't have space for myself. And I'm at the end of my line. And then to really have the tools and the practices and different perspectives to see, okay, well, actually this happens to me when I engage with different tasks and responsibilities, not just with children, right? And then how do I deal with it in other situations in my life? So definitely it's been helpful for me to have different points of reference to bring into fatherhood and to call myself out on that, to be able to recognize when I'm going through something.
I love that. Yeah, man. Like I can see already that energy that's coming up for me around, oh no, I don't want my child to see, see this or like, is this pattern still going to show up? Like, how can I at the last round before my child comes, how can I like cleanse all of the stuff that I don't want to bring into this? And I've come into this realization that like that's the problem with how I was raised, and the conditioning that's rampant in our society is that we're so focused on what we're not showing versus showing it and calling it out and owning it so that we can grow through it. And I think, you know, through so many of the men's circles and father circles that I've joined, so many men are afraid of showing their families what they're actually experiencing because the not knowing is this fear. It's like, I should know. I should know what to do. I should know how to feel, and I don't. Therefore, I'm not good enough, and I better pretend. And I'm like, that's where I'm like, okay, so it's okay not to know. How can I embrace that, but then choose a new path in the midst of having to support my kid and my wife and my family and do personal growth and run businesses? Like, how can I address and face what's really coming up and be exposed and seen like, this is me. This is me fully. You know, that's what I'm hoping to step more into and committed to stepping more into as I go on this journey. And I love hearing that from you because it's reiterating that that's the importance of this.
Yeah, I find for me it goes back to just human being. How can I engage with the integral process of humanity in my life and not pretend to be a certain role? And of course, it's important to have that perspective that, yeah, I do have a role and responsibility as a father. And with my wife, as we've gone through that process, then we also just saw how we can really better support each other through that. In our last talk, we spoke about how when the child is born, at first, the mother is everything for the child. She's their whole universe. She provides the nourishment, the support. She is there with the child most of the time. And then gradually, so my son right now, he's 3.5 years old, and we are starting to bond more and more with him together. And it's very timely that my second child came 4 months ago, and then he's transitioning to being with me. My wife is with our infant a lot of the time. And it's really this process of recognizing, okay, I have certain roles in this evolution of the child as a human being. And then sometimes something in me, well, I want to spend more time with my child, but then my wife, she has priority over that. And then I can support them in that, knowing that my time will come. Right. So then at a certain point, we will have greater bonding and experiences. And then understanding that helps me be more at peace and also to engage with my part of this whole process, where I can make sure that they have the space to do that and they are safe and protected in that. And my wife has the necessary support from me to be able to be in support of the children.
I love that, man. So I want to touch on that a bit because I'm going to be, you know, that's the door that I'm going to be stepping into very soon. What was that role for you? Like, what advice would you give in terms of what role I can, how I can best support Chanel and my child when I'm not really needed in the you know, intimate interaction of breastfeeding, or the baby's going to be so focused on mom. Where do I find myself?
Yeah, when my wife was preparing to give birth for the first time, our midwife, she gave us this pointer. She said, well, you have to look in nature and into the examples of how the different animals act. So she said, look at the chickens and the roosters. So when the chicken, for example, is laying the eggs, the rooster is running around her and make sure that her space is safe and she's protected.
True.
And then she was like, okay, so when your wife is gonna be in the process of giving birth, then be like that rooster. Don't try to give her advice or do different things, and you can hold her, support her, but don't interfere in that process. Make sure that she has that safe space, both on the inner and outer levels. And that actually helped me a lot, because then I had something to do. Because the worst part for me was to just not have anything to do and just sit there and wait and see my wife struggle and go through her process and not being able to do anything about it. So at least I could make sure that the space is set up, that everything is in place, that she wanted to have a warm bath at a certain point. So then I had this mission where I had to fill up this bath with a broken pipe, and I was happy doing that. It gave me something to do. And then, of course, throughout the later time, then also just making sure that I have certain tasks and responsibilities. I can go to the store, I can get the food, I can make sure that there is, things set up and ways for my wife to be supported in that way. And so having certain perspective of what is my side of that, how I can still be in tune with the greater process, and be a part of that. And then, of course, when the child is screaming and yelling, and my wife is much better equipped. She has this motherly intuitive skill, in this embedded intuition, how to take care of them and how to work with it, and how to actually bear with the screaming. Where for me at first it was completely unbearable, and I was able to recognize the inner child inside of me that I never really learned how to be with, that was screaming. And it took me a while, and at first I just had to get away from it. I could only bear up to a certain degree, and then I had to take a time out. And it was important for me to acknowledge that and to admit my own limitations, and to say, okay, I can only bear, I would like to bear more with that, to learn how to deal with that, but I can only bear this much, and I can keep pushing my edges. And so then both of us, we had to really face our limitations and admit them to each other and see how we can support each other through our limitations. So that was also a big part of our parenthood journey.
Yeah, man, I definitely feel that. I feel like there's a conversation that's been coming up in my bubble a lot recently, and that is like around the scorecard that shows up in our relationships. Like, I did this, you didn't do that. Look at all these things I did, and I feel like that's just going to get rocked here really soon for me. Where like, it doesn't matter about the scorecard. I don't need to be collecting points to prove something. It sounds like for you, it was like, how can you be more supportive so that you and your wife can give the most love to your child? Like, you kind of have to, it sounds like you have to let go of that sense of self-importance and getting what you think you need or what you want out of the situation, and making what you want the providing of the support.
Yeah, and definitely working together as a team to make sure that the support is available. In our Tibetan tradition, you can see the altar behind me, there is that union of wisdom and compassion. And that is something that has to develop from the basic care and support. And each one of us, when we are born, we are completely helpless. Completely helpless. And there has to be that care and support, the masculine and the feminine, on a very basic level, for each of us to develop into a human being. And so then, to really make sure that basic care and support are available for the child. And then to see, okay, so then in order for the care to be available, there have to be certain conditions, certain support there. And in order for that support to be present, then of course there has to be care as well that is directed to the support. And so then the father and the mother, the masculine and the feminine, and relating that to the qualities within each one of us as well. So then yeah, in order for me to be of support, I have to have a degree of care available. And I have to be able to take care of myself. I have to be able to take care of all of my own turmoils and all of the processes that are happening. Like I was saying before, I have to be able to hold my own child, my inner child first, that is kicking and screaming and doesn't want to do something and is trying to bargain and get something out of it. And I have to be able to actually acknowledge and recognize that child and to see, oh, there's that capricious child again, and I have to hold this child and I have to be with this child, and then I can also be with the circumstances around me because of that. But if I don't acknowledge this child and I say, no, I shouldn't really be thinking this. This is bad that I want to get away from this situation. This is bad that I cannot bear with my child screaming. This is bad that I cannot be of better support for my wife because I want to be in my own space for a little bit. And then it's just a vicious cycle from there, because I start to suppress those tendencies that are actually asking for care from my own side.
Wow. It's landing hard for me right now, for sure. I'm curious of what parts of my inner child are going to be coming up, kicking and screaming, like you said. I can feel into it a bit just as you're saying it, because I'm reflecting on it. But what tools would you recommend for fathers or or expecting fathers to be able to bring that awareness to what's showing up inside of themselves, so that they can care more for their child and their family?
Yeah, well, one of the tools is just breathing and taking the moment and tuning in, just seeing, okay, this is what is coming up for me right now in this situation. And yeah, I don't have to react based, I don't have to run off, but the more I acknowledge it, the more I can be present with it without running off and seeing, yeah, there is this child part of me that is having difficulty with this situation, and I can engage with this situation not just as something external, oh, this is my obligation and I just have to be there and just bear and grin, and instead actually seeing, no, this situation is here to help me actually engage with this inner child. So one of the essential tools for me has been to see this connection between the inner and outer landscapes, to see that, yeah, everything that is coming up for me on the outside is helping me to become a better human being. It's helping me to reconcile everything that I have been avoiding in my life and all kinds of different issues that I have experienced with my own parents. And so this intention, in a way, to see that, yeah, this everything that is happening is an opportunity for me to reconcile. It's not just happening on the external level and is happening randomly for me to run away from, but it's happening for me to actually connect the dots in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that, yeah, I see how my parents have acted and they didn't know any better. And they're also human beings and I'm a human being. And now I'm engaging with this process. And now I have an opportunity to see how it is. And that allows me also to reconcile with my own parents and not to be harsh on them because of what happened to me in my life.
Right. I love your perspective on bringing compassion to the inner child, as you put it, and your parents, and like your journey through this. Because often I hear like, we have the inner dialogue, the ego, the inner child, as you're putting it, this voice that's, kicking and screaming or trying to make deals or trying to manipulate the situation. And often I hear of, like, killing the ego or really like fighting against it. And I'm guilty of this where I can hear that voice being like, no, stay in bed, relax, you deserve to sleep in. And I'm like, no, like I'm taking a stand for what I want. And that feels powerful for me. But I'm not bringing much compassion. I'm kind of like, shut up. I'll deal, you don't get a voice in this. I'm choosing what I want. I'm going to embody and live that. And I want to hear your perspective on that, because there's times where I'm like, yeah, I feel like a warrior for getting up early and doing what I said I was going to do powerfully and not listening to that voice. But then what I hear from you is that that voice is a part of you. And if you can bring compassion to it, but not follow it necessarily, that seems to be more of an effective approach for you.
Yeah, definitely. I've been finding that it's essential to have the middle way, to acknowledge that, yeah, there is the inner child within me, but then there is also the parent within me. And then how can I make this parent also more compassionate? And compassion doesn't mean that I just have to be slacking or just go easy. Compassion sometimes also, okay, in order to grow and evolve, the compassion sometimes means a kick in the butt for myself. And to see that, yeah, it doesn't make sense to keep acting in that same way. And compassion has to come from a certain degree of clarity. It's not just being emotional and whiny with myself, but there has to be clarity. Okay, well, how can I really bring everything into account and recognize that in order for me to be of support, I also have to have some basic care and support in my life. And initially that was very hard for me. When it all started at first, yeah, spending a whole day, with a crying child and with my wife, and then not having time for myself, and then taking that time at night, and then not getting enough sleep. And so that was very hard. And then also not being able to communicate clearly the needs that I had. And yeah, of course, at some points I had to just do things, and yeah, things have to be done no matter what. And then gradually I started noticing, well, why does it have to be a separation? Why do I have to run off and have space for myself? And why can't I just bring that into the experiences that I'm having? And so then gradually I started to see, okay, well, I can actually engage in different situations, and instead of having this attitude, I just want to get it done so I can do something else, to actually engage with it wholeheartedly and seeing this connection between the inner and the outer landscapes. Yeah, while I'm doing this, I'm taking care of my inner child. I'm holding my outer child, and I'm taking care of my inner child as I do this. And I engage in this situation, and I can settle into this process instead of just wanting it to be over.
Yeah.
And then as I'm doing it, yeah, just continuing to breathe and continue to bring myself back to the present moment and notice my monkey mind just starting to have a circus in my head around the subject. And so definitely a sense of humor has helped a lot. And even just to smile at my own turmoil and the drama that my mind was creating around different situations. And then another thing is with my wife, we had an agreement where we hold space for each other. So if she's breaking down, I'm not going to break down together with her. I'm going to hold space for her. If I'm breaking down, she's not going to break down together with me. So one of us can hold space. And then we can actually let each other know, I'm really breaking down right now, and I'm going through all of this, and then we can hold space for each other and notice this, yeah, ebbs and flows, right? It's also important to acknowledge that, yeah, things pass. It's not like they are like that all the time, and then that also is helpful to really work with each other in that way.
That's two big points there. Am I echoing?
No, just the voice is a little bit fuzzy, but it's okay. I can hear you.
there's a big point where you said the switch from having to like run away to take care of yourself and being able to do that on the spot. That's been a big fear of mine, but also something I'm working through. And I can see how powerful that's going to be. That mindset of like, I need to bring that into my life always, because it's going to be, I'm not going to bring my presence to my family because I'm always going to be thinking of, once this is done, then I'll do that, and I'll be a bit resentful. And the other thing was holding that space. And Cam's asking here, what if you're both in that sort of breakdown at the same time? How do you deal with that? Like, how do you navigate that agreement when you're both in the weeds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of us has to actually rise to the occasion. So at a certain point, we start to notice this downward spiral, and then it gets to a certain threshold where we have to acknowledge it, and one of us has to actually rise to the occasion and say, okay, I see that both of us are breaking down, and this is what's happening. And just bringing that into the situation, just bring that acknowledgement, then often helps to see that, yeah, this is this time when we are both experiencing that. So let's cultivate more compassion for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if we cannot hold space for each other in that moment, we can take a few deep breaths and then keep engaging, because it's not really the issue itself that is the problem, but the attitude towards it.
Yeah.
And what attitude do we have in different situations towards different experiences, and then towards each other? And yeah, sometimes it's important to just bring into awareness without trying to change what is happening. Okay, so I am in a funk and I'm going through my drama, and I just have to notice it, and I have to be with it. And at a certain point, it just becomes ridiculous. I start to see how ridiculous I'm acting and how puffed up I get. And so then I can come back and I can say, yeah, I've been going through this drama, and I see that it's silly, and I appreciate, just noticing that and bringing it to my attention, because I do want to work with that, and I do wish to transform those kind of situations in my life and notice where I get carried off and carried away. And what you said also, just seeing that having a child is a motivation to become a better human being. And for me, it was also a very important intention before my first child was born, and brought a lot for me. And it was just this period of a lot of reconciliation that was taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the child was born, and so I was already deep into that intention. Yeah, I really want to keep engaging with fatherhood as an evolutionary journey. And I want to keep seeing all the ways that I'm blind, that I get carried off in my mind, that I just lose patience and become capricious. And I have to notice this inner child that has not gotten that attention in my life, that has not really learned how to engage with situations in a better way. And so then, even when a breakdown is happening, even when I'm in a funk or in a drama, it's good in a way, because I want to see those situations so that I can work with them.
And you asked for it.
I asked for it, for sure. And so yeah, it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, and I'm upset and dramatic, but I have asked for it. And so then to actually have that intention ahead of time was really beneficial in my experience.
Yeah, man. I think that, like, obviously becoming a father, starting a family is deeply ingrained in us biologically, but also socially, right? It's one of the checks on the list of life that we're here to do. and there's a lot of pressure to do it, but also it just happens. Like, not all of us are like, let's plan and let's conceive in this moment, blah, 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 blah. And even if that happens, it's kind of like, whoa, I wanted this, but I didn't really know what I was stepping into. And just having you share about that awareness around like, yeah, I asked for this, and like, this is what I'm signing up for. I'm signing up for a deeper discovery of myself. I'm signing up for seeing how much more I can grow in my capacity for life and for love and compassion. You know, that, like, just to be frankly honest, like, that's exciting the hell out of me, is just to see like, whoa, how am I going to show up? What is going to come up? And how am I going to deal with that? You know, the fear is starting to shed off a little bit, because it feels like I'm stepping into ceremony soon. Like I'm so committed to it. I'm going into it. That's happening. So letting go of like the fears of it not getting it right, or the fears of not knowing what to do, are starting to release, because I'm like, I know that I'm going to have the awareness to face myself in the situation. I'm going to be in the funk. I'm going to have breakdowns, and that's part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then, of course, a big part of that is also to see all of my limitations, and all of the ways that I am not so capable of dealing with different experiences. And then from that, also discovering a greater sense of relatedness and kindness and tolerance, because I can begin to engage and accept my own discomfort and my own suffering in a way. And so then the more that I can do that, the more that I can actually see that, yeah, this is something that other people have to deal with as well. My parents had to deal with that. And of course, nowadays, when I see like my children acting in all kinds of ways and are being capricious and screaming and yelling and throwing tantrums and meltdowns, and I remember how I was a difficult child when I was little. You know, I gave my parents a lot of trouble, and so I'm able to find a newfound respect for my parents, a new sense of appreciation, what they had to go through that to raise me, and that actually created a deeper bond with my parents. And then because of that bond, I'm able to step beyond my boundaries. Right? So just acknowledging my limitations creates the relatedness, and then through that relatedness, I can surpass those limitations. I can see that, yeah, this is the experience that my parents have had with me, and they also didn't know, and they knew even less than me probably. And I can have at least this connection and this relatedness and recognition, and so there is a certain spaciousness that is developed. It's not just my experience. I'm not the only one who feels limited and overwhelmed and at capacity. And because I can see that I'm not the only one, and others also engage with that and experience that, then I don't take it as personally. It's not my drama anymore. It's just the basic human experience. It's not my drama. And everyone faces their limitations. And so the least I can do is to do it consciously and to see that, yeah, here I am breaking down, and it's natural to break down at this moment. And then at the same time, because this is what everyone are going through, I can actually have a little bit extra awareness and see how I can break down more creatively and how I can do it more gracefully. It's this process of fail again, and fail better.
Yeah.
And so then I can do it a little bit better, and I can do it in a way that is more supportive of everyone else, and with greater compassion and understanding of this process, both for myself and others. And so then it's not this my drama that is happening, but I can let go of my drama, and then with less drama, there is greater potential as well that is coming to the surface.
for sure. I see that, like, I see the benefits, obviously, of bringing that awareness to what's coming up for you, and then how that interacts with the outer world and the intimate family. How about in your intimate relationship, like with Cynthia and with your family? Because this is something that's coming up for me. Is we're going to have this child that's going to demand a lot of energy and care. How do we maintain that and this bond and intimate relationship with the two of us without getting so caught up in the got to do the thing, got to take care of the baby? There's again, we'll do that once we'll take care of the relationship once the baby's sleeping, or once the thing is cleaned, or once all these things are taken care of, and then it never happens, because that's a fear of mine coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my own experience, the relationship also had to change. It was no longer just the relationship between the two of us, it was the relationship with our family. And it was also a relationship between the mother and the father. And of course, a lot of it had to do with friendship. So how can we continue a relationship that is based on friendship first and foremost, instead of a relationship as a couple? And so to keep being friends to each other, to keep being supportive of each other. And yeah, the relationship has many different phases to it. And so in my experience, it was important to have this friendship, the evolutionary friendship, that we are friends, we are going through this intense experience together. Our lives are changing, they'll never be the same again. We're no longer living just for our own sake. And now we actually have to take that on as part of our daily practice and honor each other as human beings and as friends. And then with the friendship as a foundation, then of course there is the intimate part and the intimate relationship and the relationship with the kids. But it was very important in my experience to really focus on the friendship.
Yeah,
and the friendship, we both are facing the same situation together. It's not like we're looking at each other, but we are looking in the same direction together, and then we are both changing, and we can support each other in coming out of our old patterns and old habits and old habitual traits and ways that we engage with the world. And so that actually brought us closer together.
Okay. I love that. And I'm curious because, a lot of what I've been exploring lately is this polarity, right? Within relationships and within the masculine and feminine energies within us, and also in our relationships. And when you said that our relationship's based on friendship first and foremost, that I kind of like tinged my tower, because I'm thinking, like, how do you create the attraction when you're in friendship mode? And then how do you transition from that friendship mode into lover mode? Because for me, I find it, not only in this relationship, but in past relationships, it goes in this lover attraction, and then into, friendship, roommate phase. And then it's kind of like how to climb out of that. I can only imagine having a child kind of extends that period. So when you say friendship, yeah, I'm really curious how you create the romantic, intimate attraction that has polarity.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's a tricky one. And in today's world, a lot of people, they have this perspective of living in a certain fantasy world, needing to be in a fantasy world. Okay, I'm a god and she's a goddess, and we are a god and a goddess, and then we have bills to pay, and we have work to do, and we have all kinds of tasks that need to be done, but we are this god and a goddess, and then we can't really talk to each other about the mundane responsibilities of life because we are in this fantasy. And so in my experience, it's important to actually drop that in terms of everyday life and relate to each other as human beings. Okay, we are in a way co-pilots, right? We have to make sure that we are able to navigate this spacecraft and not crash and burn. And for that, we have to drop all appearances and be practical with each other and support each other in that practicality and acknowledge that, yeah, we all have our downfalls and we all have our weaknesses. And then in order for us to sustain the family unit, we have to engage with it on that level as friends. And then, of course, when it's the intimate time and we have a time dedicated to ourselves, then we can engage in all kinds of fantasy games and roles and be the god and the goddess. So there's time and place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that it's important to have that distinction where we don't lose ourselves in this fantasy and then I just want this person to be that for me. I want her to be that perfect someone at all times, but she's her own person.
Mm-hmm.
She also has the masculine and the feminine within her. She also has certain emotions and processes and responsibilities, and the same thing with myself. And so then to really have this relationship between friends as a foundation,
Mm-hmm.
where we can acknowledge that, yeah, we have to go through it, and my wife, I don't always like it the way that she does things, and she doesn't always show her good side, and that's not why I'm with her, right? Because then the fantasy would break really fast if I want her to be that goddess all the time for me,
Mm-hmm.
because my own inner qualities are lacking and I need her to compensate it for me, then it's not really a healthy relationship and it will break down.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have this understanding that, yeah, we all go through our phases and we all have our difficulties and challenges, and she may need more time sometimes to process something, I may need more time, or there may be like a serious issue that is coming up within our relationship. So also for me, in our friendship, if there is something that is coming up, so like for years something that is coming up and it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up, and it's not really being engaged and acknowledged, and sometimes I have seen myself also just try to block it and compensate it with the fantasy. Okay, well, maybe we'll just have sex and it will resolve everything, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? So then the friendship part also is important to just see that, yeah, each of us has our own growth to do, has our own evolution to engage with, and then we don't want to compensate for each other and just block it so it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, when I experience this sincerity and the willingness to engage in the evolutionary journey, that's actually very attractive for me. That's more attractive to me than having some kind of an unrealistic fantasy that I keep trying to recreate.
Yeah, I hear you completely on that. Like for me, I can feel when I tap into that, there's this inner child part of me that's wanting something from her, but that's also terrified of her rejection of me. So which keeps me more in this friendship level because that's safe for me. Like for me personally, I can be an amazing friend, an amazing doer, taking care of things. But for me to elevate to like a place where I'm more excited and bringing more energy of playfulness and dance and spontaneity, that's an edge for me that I constantly back down from. Do you know what I mean? That I'm wanting to create that culture for my family, because I actually asked this question in a men's group a couple of weeks ago. Like, we were doing a meditation and I was guiding the men to look and remember how their parents interacted and how they experienced intimacy, through their parents. And 6 out of 10 guys were like, I don't remember really any interaction that way. And others were like, it wasn't the healthiest memory. And same goes for me. Like, I don't remember my parents, only a few times where they were like playfully, romantically engaged. And that's important to me, to have that. But that's also friendship, being able to like spontaneously just follow your expression and not hold back. Like, there's this moment that happens for a lot of us where the hurt child again is kind of like, don't do that, because remember way back a time when we were really hurt, or we were rejected, or we were shamed for doing that. That holds us back from that evolution within our relationship. And of course, that's our own personal evolution, is to get through that. But there's still a mask. There's still this mask, for me anyways, where I'm playing the good boy that's, a fantastic roommate, but not an incredible lover. And I want to be that type of a father.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And it's a challenging one. And for me, I had to go through a few breakdowns in order to get to a point where it's just going through that again and again. And then at a certain point, something just snapping in me. And just not being able to go by the book or to play it in that way. And as I shared earlier, to really bring that experience of playfulness, or not going by the scenario, into the mundane circumstances, and to have that extra spark of creativity to bring into the difficult situations. Okay, yeah, everything's falling apart. There's diapers everywhere. The child is screaming. Now we have 2 children screaming at the same time. And then how can I come into this situation with a smile? And how can I bring a little bit more playfulness and sense of humor into it, instead of just being dragged along with it, or just try to hold it with this kind of serious expression on my face. And so definitely something had to just, at a certain point, I could no longer just keep behaving by the book. And then, my real self had to come through, and then see that, I don't want to just play this by some kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm going to step away from the scenario and engage with it in a more creative, in a more meaningful, in a more playful way, and also in a way that can be supportive. And this is something that you mentioned. It's like this collective drama that may be unfolding, where there's this domino effect of one thing breaking after another, and things don't go the way that we expect them to go, and our schedule is not aligning, and all of that is happening. And then I know how my personality is rigid, that gets dragged into this drama. And so then, definitely it had to happen to me quite a few times before I started noticing, and then could actually acknowledge it as it, and then not go along with it for the ride. And then say to myself, you know what? I've been through this roller coaster ride a few times already. So how about I smile instead of freaking out? And how can I engage with this situation in not in such a kind of expected type of response?
Yeah.
Predictable.
Right. That seems like the key to me, is that trying to follow what we're already, the steps that we're already in the snow constantly, and then wanting, it seems obvious as I'm saying it, but wanting something different, or wanting a new experience, but doing the same thing over and over again. And I feel like that's also coming up for me in terms of this. There's something around like having to know, like I know the results. I'm familiar with the results if I continue doing what I'm doing. There's safety in that, you know, perceived at least. There's also this like addiction to trying to know everything to be prepared for this child that's on its way, right? And then wanting to know how my partner is going to respond if I take that spontaneous risk. You know, there's something for me around this addiction to knowing that's prohibiting me from really expanding into myself more. And I'm not saying that I'm like content with that or complacent. I'm trying to always push that boundary, but I keep hitting this spot where I'm wanting that explosion through, but I'm like, well, the familiar comfort muck over here is, you know, it's giving me something.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it's this process of just facing the impermanence, facing the uncertainty, and recognizing that that's actually the nature of reality. And then, yeah, I'm less likely to actually have hissy fit about it or be a drama queen in my life. And so then seeing that, yeah, here it goes again, and here I am reacting and I'm responding to it in a very predictable way. And then I can start by just smiling at myself within it. And have a sense of humor and to be able to laugh at myself, right? Is this the sense of humor is not the ability to tell a joke, it's the ability to take a joke. Yeah, there is a joke that is happening on my account right now. I can take that joke and I can smile. That's the first thing that I can do is to smile and not to beat myself up about it and not to be so harsh, and then I can actually engage with the situation, right? Otherwise, I can see that in different people that I know in my life who have not been able to engage with fatherhood in this more conscious way, and then had to act in this very predictable manner and be this certain role for their family, and then not be able to engage with their emotions and feelings, and then suppress them, and then as a result just maybe running away from their family or having all kinds of substance abuse issues or different things, all because of this part of oneself that is not acknowledged, that is not taken into the equation, into the account. And so then how can I acknowledge all of those aspects of myself? Like you were saying before, to really see that, yeah, this is who I am, and it all comes together. And I cannot just be this one-sided character in a movie that is fulfilling the role. There is more to me that has to come through. And then I can also acknowledge that with myself and also with my wife and with my children. I don't have to run off in order to do that, or to find a place for this part of me that has no place in this situation. And so with my son also, it was very useful where I started telling him, Papa gets grumpy too sometimes. And then I can actually notice myself doing that, and he also can recognize it. And then I don't have to unconsciously act it out or have this anger that is not expressed, or like this stressful behavior that is very tense. And so then I can loosen up and actually approach it creatively. And I love it with my older son. When he started to engage with his emotions, he like just started to be creative. And so when he was angry, he would sing an angry song. He was like and that was amazing for me to witness. Yeah, it's possible to bring creativity and this playfulness into all of those emotions that I've been struggling in my life and was very serious about. But then to actually act it out, and he loves it. And when I can play with him in that way, and I feel that something is not working out, and I get frustrated, but then I can sing about it, and I can be playful in that way. So then I can bring that part of myself and not make it into such a big issue.
Yeah, that's really powerful to me, is the being able to bring it up to the surface and name it, and it takes the power away from it. It allows you the opportunity to be seen with it, but also to choose a different path. Like telling your son and talking about it makes such a big difference, because it's also allowing him to see that that's okay. It's okay to be angry, and then we can dance or sing through it, and then we're into the next experience. And most of us haven't been taught how to process that. So yeah, first I want to honor you for doing that, because I think that that's a very powerful, intentional move on your part, and a good way to support your son and your family. Something that came up for me as you were saying that is, I might not get this exactly right, but another teacher of mine shares that life, like consciousness and stepping into fatherhood, is about learning to dance. But we can't limit ourselves by just learning to dance to one song, because the song of life is constantly going to change. And if you're caught trying to do the tango when the song is different, you're going to feel completely off, right?
Right.
So learning different dance moves to be able to adapt, and when the song shifts, you're into a different dance. And that to me is like this, being able to accept the situation and pivot and continue your awareness and your leadership into the moment through creativity. Like, that's just such a powerful metaphor for me, stepping into something that I'm like, I know I don't know, and I'm not going to know, but I'm willing to adapt and pivot and dance to this. And I feel like that also relates to showing up in our relationships, through the chaos, through those meltdowns, through the funk that you were talking about, being able to see and feel your inner child that's wanting something, and then sing that song with them, or dance to that song through the moment, whether you're crying in sorrow, or you're angry or frustrated, or you're like joyous and happy. Like, being present through it and willing to move through it is leadership and fatherhood. And as I say that, it's really powerful to feel into.
Yeah, definitely. And so I find that, of course, yeah, all of that is present, and then to actually navigate life through all of that, and then include all of those things into the equation, and to see that, yeah, we have the family unit to support, and there is something that is very serious about it and very practical. And at the same time, as we are doing it, we don't have to be so dramatic and so serious, and so we can actually support each other in that way and encourage each other to uplift our moods as we do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then actually we can engage with life in an even more effective way and support our families. It's like boosting the morale, right?
Yeah.
We have to keep boosting the morale and engage in different ways that allows us to do that.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, man. I think that's incredible advice. And it goes back to that, we are the culture of our relationship. Like, what we bring to it is what we get out of it. So by bringing that creativity and boosting morale, like, it's going to serve us. What's holding us back in those moments is our self-importance, or our scorecard that we're holding on to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And then, of course, another part of it is just to see how everything, again, is a reflection of the inner work that has to be done. And so then, yeah, seeing that, yeah, I want something to be present in my life, in my family, in my relationship, and I want my wife to be someone for me or to do something for me. And then also seeing how essential it is for me to actually take responsibility for that.
Mhm.
And then to bring that to the table, right? So whatever I expect, then I should provide. And so that was also a big one for me. So then if I expect more understanding and more patience for myself, then it will not happen unless I start also working on that and showing more of that. And so then it was related to the scorecard that you mentioned. So yeah, instead of like trying to, what do you call it, make scores,
Yeah.
instead to see that, yeah, I can do something in that regard. And if I want my wife to stop doing something or to stop being a certain way or to start being a certain way, then I have to look at myself first and foremost. Where am I not being that way? And then, yeah, 99.9% of the time, I find it in myself and I see how, yeah, I just blindly expect it. And actually, I'm lacking. I think that maybe I have it in a certain area, but in a lot of other areas, I lack that quality
Mm.
that I expect my wife to also have in the same area that I do.
Yeah. Man, that's big. Just good.
And then, of course, that points me to my own shortcomings and things that I really have to work on myself, and I don't want to acknowledge that.
Mhm.
And then I have this capricious child that I just want to complain and not take responsibility for something.
Yeah.
And when I notice it and I actually take responsibility for it, and I still have to work on it, of course, just taking responsibility doesn't just make it perfect. But just noticing it and admitting to that and acknowledging and talking about that with Cynthia, and then, yeah, I find that there's much greater connection and relatedness and understanding.
Mhm.
And then we become much more supportive of each other in that way.
Yeah, like bridging the expectations and assumptions with actual communication so that you can connect and create.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, yeah, there's like certain moments where maybe we have an argument or we have a certain issue or a situation, and then I start to present my case right to the court, and I
Mhm.
start to just talk about all of those things and how it's like that and it's like that and it's like that, and then, yeah, I can come back after a while and just vulnerably share that, yeah, I've been going through my difficulties and I've been experiencing this scarcity mentality and unable to show generosity to my wife and my family, and I'm sorry for doing that, because before that, even though I was experiencing this kind of like clenching and disturbance, but I was trying to project it.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are different issues, but the charge that I bring into them is not about those issues. It's about my own unresolved things. And just being able to admit that actually has made a big difference in our connection, in our relationship, in our ability to just raise our children and support them in a more healthy way.
Yeah, that to me sounds like taking responsibility, is being like,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm bringing to this is my own, making meaning out of everything, and then realizing you're doing that, and then choosing another way. Bringing compassion again to the part of you that has that charge so you can release it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's taking responsibility and admitting that, yeah, this is an issue that I have and this is what I really wish to work on. And even just honestly saying that and vulnerably admitting to that makes me much more accountable than if I just hold it to myself and like, no, I really need to work on that and I can't show this side of myself and that's it. And I'm just going to pretend like there's nothing happening here. But if I actually admit about it, then yeah, it makes me more accountable. And also there is softness around it where I'm not so harsh on myself, and it's this embrace of the inner child and then parenting of the inner child that is happening on simultaneously.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. Well, I think we could wrap it up here.
Uh-huh. My friend just wrote, my friend Ira wrote, Ron, this is a great team that you have taught me and it's really helpful. Instead of blaming others for treating us bad, look at what's going on with ourselves that might be causing this behavior from others. And so, yeah, definitely, that's a big one. It's this continuous reflection and then recognizing that, yeah, there is something for each of us to learn in each moment. That's one thing that I can trust in each moment, that there is something to learn. It's not random. It's not happening just because the world is against me. And that's a big one for me to keep reminding myself, right? Every time that I'm in the midst of it and everything is crashing down, and I have to remind myself, no, there's a message here. There is great love here of the universe that is wanting for me to evolve. And I have to really open up and tune in into this message and take it to heart. And so then, yeah, I find that life becomes beautiful.
It's a great message to finalize on. And I think it absolutely relates to everything that we've been talking about around fatherhood and accepting and bringing compassion to your inner child and yourself so that you can evolve beyond the victimhood and the judge that lives within us and actually provide and experience the experience that you're wanting to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, definitely it's something that is continuously evolving, and there are all kinds of situations, and sometimes it's down and up, and sometimes it's failure, and then there is a lesson from it. So, yeah, so it's a very all-inclusive type of experience.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for bringing your wisdom and heart, and it's good to see you down in Peru again.
Yeah, we are very happy to be back here.
Yeah.
And preparing for the upcoming retreat. I have a few days to spend with my family. I'm going to go try to have a bicycle ride with my son right now.
Amazing. Love it, man. I'm deeply grateful for these conversations, and let's keep doing them. I'm learning so much, and I'm excited to see how I can put them into practice in the next month or whenever baby chooses to arrive.
Yeah, definitely. Many blessings for the new arrival and for you and Chanel. Much love to you guys. And yeah, right now it's kind of like this volcano that is about to explode. That's how I felt with both of my kids right before they came. There's a lot of anticipation that is happening, and then the experience comes, and it's just a miracle. And yeah, it's just such an amazing experience and awakening. And each time I felt like I was being born anew. So many blessings to you and Chanel this time. And for our next conversation, maybe we can engage with our community and ask people to really share some of their experiences and critical questions and some of the situations. And yeah, we'll keep developing the subject. I love it.
I agree.
Keep supporting all the men in our lives so that they can be of support to their families as well.
Love it. Thanks, brother.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching. Much love. Be well.